What I saw was the most disgusting display that I have ever seen of someone making money off of the death of their alleged best friend. And I'm going to tell you exactly why. Welcome to Rivera and Reeves, the podcast where we break through the bias, report the news, and occasionally trip over our soapboxes while ranting about the headlines.
Every week, we tackle the biggest stories with sharp analysis, unfiltered honesty, and just enough sarcasm to keep it fun.
So pull up a chair, grab your coffee, and join us as we wade through the spin because the media is trash and we have zero patience for their nonsense. Hey, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Rivera and Reeves. I'm Meseidy, and I'm here with my friend Rachel. Say hello, Rachel.
Hello, Rachel.
I like this turtleneck situation you have going on.
Do you?
Yes,
Thank
I
you.
do. You look
I got it at
very elegant.
a thrift shop. So
well,
I just
that makes
don't
it
you
even
feel
better.
compelled? I don't know why females feel compelled when they have something like it has pockets.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
I got it
was
at
gonna say,
TJ
it's like two
Maxx for
things.
$5. Yes, if it's cheap or if it has pockets, women are like, "Let me tell you about it," and nobody
I
cares.
know.
Like literally nobody cares. But thank you. I did. I got it for $18 at a thrift shop, and it is a very nice brand that I would not have been able to afford otherwise.
Yeah. I'm here with you. Those are my favorite things. That's how I am about
Mhm.
furniture.
Yes. Let me tell you all about this piece of furniture. And the person's like, I just wanted to compliment it. That's all.
Yes.
I don't need the backstory.
My husband will look at me. He's like, why do you guys do that? I'm like, dude,
I don't know.
this is how we just do. It's how we communicate. It's fine.
It's true.
Deep breaths, Meseidy. What are we doing today? So in today's episode of Rivera and Reeves, we're doing a little Q&A session. So we've put out some questions into our social platforms and on our paying subscribe. Oh my gosh, exclusive paying supporter chat just to kind of get a feel of what were the questions that everyone is having right now in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination. And we had other questions that weren't necessarily focused on that. And if we have time to get to them, we'll try and squeeze in. But most of the questions, unsurprisingly, were pretty focused around Charlie Kirk's assassination, the information that's been coming out, a lot of questions, theories, and we're going to break it down. And this episode is probably also going to be a little opinion heavy in some portions.
Mm-hmm.
So before we get started, if this is your first time here, welcome. You have found your new favorite podcast. Please consider becoming a paying supporter so you can get bonus episodes, bonus content, and you'll be one of the first ones to get our video content and audio content before everybody else. So it's like a few hours before and the video content a full day before. So if you cannot get enough of us, I would highly encourage you to please consider becoming a paying supporter. Yeah, that's it. And go and subscribe to our YouTube channel because we are working to grow that. And that is our next goal. Hopefully we get so popular, we can hire an editor and that would be glorious.
Wouldn't that be lovely? My goodness.
All right. So at the top, we're going to just dive into these questions. Now, we got a lot of questions, and a lot of these questions all fell within very similar or overlapping categories. So I collected these questions, and then I created questions that would basically summarize everybody's question that kind of fell within the same category, just because of the quantity that we got, and a lot of them were repetitive. And some people would ask a question, but then somebody had a related one. So I thought this would be the most efficient way to go about it. One of the most common questions that we got was questioning the official narrative that we've been all hearing from. I mean, I think the problem of this official narrative question is that a lot of these theories started trickling out early on. I would say literally like the day after Charlie was assassinated. And so a lot of people are asking, do you believe we're getting the full story on Charlie Kirk's death? And what about loose ends like the security guard, Discord messages, or out-of-state cars suggesting planning? Now, there's a lot there. And what I can tell you is what we officially know. And also there's, of course, a lot of speculation. Have you seen these videos and this discourse on, and let me specify that this question I'm focusing specifically on, for example, Michael Savage did a segment where he was he's saying something's weird. There's something else out there. Um, and also let me point out that Michael Savage did that very shortly after. I think it was like the day after Charlie
Mhm.
was killed or something like that. And I think the
Yeah.
timing of that sort of thing is really important. But have you been seeing this dialogue and this conspiracy also?
I see people comment and say something feels off to me, which I'm fine with people saying that because, we have intuition and we're wanting to kind of, there's, I think, a natural reaction to want to be suspicious, especially Americans in relation to their government are just, we're born with it. It's like in our DNA. So I'm seeing that, but then I'm also seeing people right out the gate make statements like this was an inside job or they're not telling us everything or they're withholding something right away. And that I almost always dismiss out of hand immediately because if you are accusing our country of having inside knowledge of an assassination of a political activist, that's a humongous accusation. And I feel like to just say that, within hours of something tragic like this happening says a lot about your hubris, especially if you're kind of a normal podcaster like us. I also think that people need to be cautious of that because when everything is a conspiracy, nothing is. And so what that tells me when it's 4 hours after he's been shot, the whole country's kind of reeling and you're like, "Well, I figured it out." It's like, calm down. But I don't get rubbed the wrong way necessarily when people say something feels off to me because things feel off to
Well,
me
I
all the
think
time,
something feels off is a valid thing. Like, obviously, this is
Yeah,
not a normal situation to be going through.
right.
My frustration is just like the immediate response, which I found it pretty immediate, where it's like, are you going to tell me that, and, fill in the blanks, like
Right.
perfect shot, had this opportunity, the security guard, by the way, oh gosh, I should have looked this up before, but I, that people have pointed out in these
Mhm.
videos, and I think there's like a big buff guy behind him, and also I think a man with a white hat or something that
Oh,
people
when
are
they
trying
were
to
trying to say they're doing, like, hand
like a
motions and, like,
signal
signal.
or something like that. That is like maybe the guy, it wasn't like he was scratching his nose, but it's like assuming that because someone scratches their nose before something happens has to
Yeah.
be a signal. And I just think that that is a stretch. Also, I believe the man with the hat was identified as someone within Charlie's circle
Yeah.
and being a friend. And so
Yeah.
to make that assumption, I understand that people are trying to look for answers to things,
Mhm.
but also, and it's totally valid considering it's not like the government doesn't have a history of covering things up. And of
Right.
course, we all, there's the questions of RFK Jr. and John F. Kennedy and, Martin Luther King of whether or not these assassinations were inside jobs. Okay. I want to provide just like an instinctual critical thinking process here on
Mhm.
my end, and this is how I
Right.
see it. I am much more open, and you can call me naive and I don't care. I am much more open of the potential of the events during the 1960s of having been done by our government and specifically the CIA because there was so much contention at the time between the administration and
Mhm.
between the CIA and the administration against also not the administration, I'm sorry, but people within the government, the deep state against those individuals. Now,
Yeah.
that is something that a lot of people will assume in this instance too. However, the reason I find this to be very different is because in order for this to be a cover up done by who is investigating this? The FBI. So are
Mhm.
you suggesting to me that Cash Patel and Dan Bongino have come into some kind of information that would prove that some deep state entity within our government, someone who they've been railing against for years,
Mhm.
went and assassinated Charlie Kirk?
Right.
Like, that to me makes no sense. That
Mhm.
alone to me makes absolutely no sense. Now, there's a lot of questions about the information that we have been given, and a lot of it is stemming primarily from the the video that was released and the images that were released after the assassination. Specifically, that nobody sees the assassin with a gun on the rooftop. And let me explain something very simply is that the information, do I think we're getting everything from the FBI or from law enforcement? No, I don't. Because it would be absolutely irresponsible for the FBI, for law enforcement, for Utah law enforcement, for anyone to just dump all of the information that they have.
Well, and mind you, they're kind of damned if they do and damned if they don't, because Kash Patel, I think, was a little too quick on the updating the
We have
American
this
people of what's
guy and we
happening.
have
And
this
so he just
guy.
started like tweeting stuff while there's an actual like manhunt going on. And people were railing against him, rightfully so. I didn't like that he was doing that, but people were very upset about that. So, he even got up and he said, I'm not going to make any apologies. I wanted to make this information available. But, he does it too fast. They're giving you not enough information. And I just think it all kind of ties in with the fact that none of us can concentrate anymore. We're in a fast media environment. We want, you know, information in 90-second snaps instead of having to read long form information. Nobody can wait and sit with an idea and sit with a thought and think it through before just blurting out whatever they think in their mind. And we expect information to just hit us like a tidal wave when something like this happens so that we can figure it out in the least amount of time. It's just not possible. It doesn't work like
Well,
that.
not only is it not possible, but it would be irresponsible
Right,
for
correct.
any person that's in law enforcement. In fact, I am incredibly uncomfortable, if I'm going to be honest, with the amount of information that is being shared, especially by the Utah governor. And the
Mhm.
reason for that is that it can create problems and challenges later during the prosecution of this person.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
so when you ask the question, are we getting everything? No, we're not. I can tell you that 125% are not, because it would be irresponsible for that to happen. And again, these are friends or very close associates of
Mhm.
Charlie Kirk. And if
Yeah.
you think that they're covering up information because they're covering up the, I don't know, like the kill or some kind of conspiracy or a coordinated event to take out Charlie Kirk, I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. I think that is absolutely ridiculous. If anything, I think it is much more likely, because I like to live in the world of what is most likely, that they're being cautious with the information that they give out, while also walking the tightrope of giving us the information that we feel like we have a right to, without damaging their case in order to prosecute this individual.
Well, and think
I
about
wonder, well,
I
I
was
was
gonna
going to
I
bring
was
up
gonna
like a reminder that the whole Idaho murder situation with Brian Kohlberger, details about that did not come out. And a lot of people had conspiracy theories. A lot of people had conspiracy theories. But the actual details that answered most of those questions did not come out until he pled guilty, he was arraigned, or like until he was sentenced. Okay. And all of that information was released.
Mhm.
So slow your roll
Mhm.
and calm down.
Yeah, and I also think about just the week prior with the, vicious murder of Arenya Zaritska on the light
The
rail.
light, yeah.
Now, the attorney general, I believe it was the attorney general, and the governor came out, and they were being peppered with questions from the press, and continually they kept saying, "We are not gonna answer that right now. We're not gonna answer that right now." People were very mad about some were upset about how he was going to be sentenced because they thought surely he should have a much harsher penalty, and they weren't sure if the sentencing was consistent with what he had done. And what they tried to make clear is, we want to create the most airtight case against him so that when we go to sentence, it will be a slam dunk. It will be sure. And if they continue to feed the details, like you were talking about in the Kohlberger case, if they continue to feed a whole bunch of details too early, or they try to over sentence, or they're not careful enough in the evidence collection and making sure that he said the things that are being purported that he said, then that could mean a detrimental outcome to his sentencing. And I think the same is going to happen here. I think that there's a lot of things they aren't telling us because they want to get this right. And I think there's extreme pressure on Bongino and on Patel. This is a very high profile case early in, this administration. I think anybody would
Investigating
be
their
rightfully
own friend.
nervous. This is their own exactly. And so
Like,
they want to get it right. They're having to learn two things at one time: how to handle a case like this, also how to be an FBI director and a deputy director. And also they're grieving. Like they're walking through their own grief and they're having to compartmentalize that and put that aside. So, the fumbling that I've seen has been relatively minimal in my opinion. And I feel like in these moments of tragedy that are so senseless, people want to know who to blame. And the idea of just blaming some random kid who was psychotic, it almost feels like not enough. And so if we can implicate our government and be able to blame them for this massive pain that our whole country is feeling, regardless of, your opinion on it, I think that that feels better to them. Maybe it's more self-explanatory because then we have to reckon with 22-year-olds just running around assassinating people.
yeah.
That feels too difficult. We've been blaming our government for things forever. That feels easy. Does that make sense?
No, it absolutely does. And I think it especially makes sense when you compound it or you put it up against the fact that we have seen what we thought were like normal people that
Correct.
run businesses and our teachers and our attorneys and doctors celebrating the
Mhm.
assassination of Charlie Kirk. So
Yeah.
that compounded with having to come to the realization that there is something deeply, deeply that has rooted itself into our society here in the United States, that this isn't just your typical political division,
That's right.
that there's something more and that it is possibly next door or at your doctor's visit is really frightening and unsettling. And so I think it's just easier to be, well, it was some other
Yep.
entity outside.
Yeah.
And that's like a psychological kind of diagnosis in theory. Um,
Yep.
in regards to what is going on here, I think that so far the information that we have points to like this dude. It was this dude. It was, and obviously he needs to be tried, and we'll see. But my point being is that it does not point to some larger conspiracy or entity outside of him, or that's like, I don't know, like this ominous, like you have no control over. You know what I mean?
Right.
Let me tell you, if anything, I hate to say this, but if this is the situation, which I believe it is, unless, question with any other evidence that he is the assassin, that this can have some change. This can change because you can change the hearts and minds of people when they actually come to see exactly how horrible things are. When you start to assign blame to something that you have absolutely no control over, I think that for me personally is much more frightening. So honestly, I prefer that it is this kid than it being like the federal government or the
Right.
deep state or some foreign country or something along those
Right.
lines.
Well, and if you're saying that it's the case for Charlie Kirk that it was an inside job, then
Who's
so
the
was Donald
inside
Trump.
too?
So was yeah, exactly. I'm saying, are you saying the administration is gonna assassinate their best activist, their most effective activist? Like it all just doesn't make sense. And
Makes
I
no
understand it
sense.
makes sense to the people who would not implicate like Trump and maybe his inside circle within the White House, but more of a broader like CIA, FBI, whatever. But that too that would be wild. Like, I just think we all are very comfortable at our houses, like pontificating on stuff. But sometimes I don't think we understand the gravity of what we're actually saying. And I know we're going to get to this when we talk about some of these influencers. But I was thinking about it this morning to implicate and kind of tippy toe and flirt with that idea that an ally country of ours just assassinated a political activist on American soil. Do you understand how big of an accusation that is? How very serious and, if true, would be like okay, I guess we're going to go to war. Like,
Yeah.
what? And people are just sitting around saying that stuff, or saying like, yeah, it's our government who does this. And I'm like, you need to be careful. Take a step back. I understand we're all reeling, but I mean, that's huge. And
Yeah.
I think that the screens and the clickety clack of the keyboards have made us very comfortable saying things that sometimes we have no evidence for. It just feels off and we want answers.
Yeah. Well, and let me tell you, like, this space, we would make so much more money if we were just like,
Um,
Rachel, I think that the squirrel next door that's looking at me sideways.
I
Do you know
know.
what I mean?
I have thought about it before. I'm like, listen, Sean, your ticket to early retirement, it could be
It's-
very easily acquired.
yeah, like
if
we would just
I
have to
had
like make
no
stuff up.
morals. Yes.
Our intent here
tempting.
is never, and we've actually, if I'm going to be honest, our growth has plateaued. And if I wanted to run with this, we could grow
Yeah.
off of it and we could become a lot bigger. But that is not my interest. My interest here, it is noisy out there. And my purpose here is to try and make reason of the noise. So
Correct.
in that spirit, I'm going to provide you with the information that we know that I think answers a lot of the questions that are out there. So specifically, they have identified the suspect, as many of us know, as I never remember his name because
Tyler Robinson.
Tyler Robinson. Like, it does not stick in my brain, which I'm actually kind of happy about. Okay. So Kash Patel went on to Fox News and he gave just a very surface rundown of what has been collected so far. So I'm going to play that here for everybody.
We flexed all resources the FBI had and surged multiple air assets as soon as this shooting occurred. We were cycling in agents, evidence response technicians, hostage rescue technicians, and special operators in and out of Utah, cycling evidence back and forth on these FBI planes as soon as we could so that there was no delay. And what we did, once I got there, along with the deputy on the ground around 5 p.m. local on September 11th, was walk the entire crime scene, including the foots the suspect himself took. And what we learned was there was evidence, DNA evidence that could be collected and had been collected, including a screwdriver that was found on the rooftop. Also, we went over to the scene in the wooded area where the firearm was discarded. And the firearm had a towel wrapped around it. It's important. I'll get back to that later. I even walked into the wooded area in the ravine, so I knew from my investigative experience what I could bring to the table and what decisions I needed to make. And having the support of President Trump and the full support of the White House was what we needed for these resources to happen. And I can report today that the DNA hits from the towel that was wrapped around the firearm and the DNA on the screwdriver are positively processed for the suspect in custody.
So, first of all, there's DNA evidence, and he's sharing that there's DNA evidence on the screwdriver and on the towel that were found at the scene. Now, I know there's a lot of questions in regards to the video that was released where the alleged assassin, which is legalese, but whatever, that the alleged assassin was when he was running across the rooftop. And a lot of people are wondering, well, where is the rifle? Also, the screwdriver that was found on the roof, a lot of people are thinking, well, maybe that screwdriver was used to disassemble the rifle, which would make people conclude that he had it in his backpack. But then, like, why would it be found reassembled in the woods? And I think that is a completely valid question because I had that question myself. Now, Bongino was asked kind of about this, I think, early in the day. I think it was yesterday on Fox. And then he clarified the question because Megyn Kelly, he was later on Megyn Kelly, she followed up with this very same question. And so I'm going to play that for you guys so you can hear what he has to say on this issue.
Was retrieving the firearm from the crime scene, not from a firearms dealer. It was from the crime scene.
Well, that's another thing that people are confused about, because if Kash said that they found his, what we presume was his screwdriver on the top of the building, and they found his DNA on it, leading many to believe he had disassembled the gun when he jumped off of the roof. But then it appears when you guys found it in the woods, it was assembled. So can you provide any clarity on that?
Yeah, and I was a little hesitant in a media appearance this morning to go into specifics on, especially the video and where the gun was. And there's a reason. Again, we only want to be transparent here.
Yeah, just tell
The
us what you can.
suspect, yeah, the suspect not cooperating. The video is obviously grainy, and as folks in the video space know out there,
All right, let me fast forward it a little bit because this clip is not. I thought I edited it, but I didn't. Here we go.
there's a couple different what we call it. All right, there you go. So we see there's some
He's getting
working
down off the
theory.
listening audience. He's getting down off the roof. He hangs for a couple seconds. He drops to the floor, to the grass, and
Yes.
then he runs. Go ahead, Dan.
Sorry, I forget sometimes there's an audio only. I should be better. This is a former media person. I forget there's an audio component only. We're watching.
I got you.
The camera is quite far away. It's not the best camera to see exactly what happened to the gun. However, we have some working theories, and one of them is that he drops the firearm fully assembled onto the ground and then retrieves it. Now, the firearm we're processing in conjunction with our ATF friends, but the firearm was wrapped in a towel. And as the director said this morning on a cable news appearance, the towel, we did get a pretty strong forensic DNA hit. So,
All right. So that is his
These are
answer to the question that everyone has been having. And now, to me, what I'm hearing there is that they're investigating exactly what happened with the rifle from the moment that he shot the rifle to when he ran across the roof and jumped off. The speculation is, which I think would make sense, is that it's possible that outside the frame of that camera view, he dropped it down onto the ground, climbed down, retrieved it, and went into the woods. I'll also note that he mentions that the towel had DNA evidence on it. The screwdriver had DNA evidence on it, but he didn't answer the question of whether or not the firearm itself or the ammunition used had DNA evidence on it. That's not to say that it didn't. It's possible that he's withholding that information because that information would literally be, pun not intended, the smoking gun that would tie him to actually firing the firearm that assassinated Charlie Kirk. Okay.
Yeah.
And the reason you don't want to put that information out is because that could possibly taint the pool, because obviously everybody's going to know about this, and then create a determination of guilt ahead of time.
Correct.
Which would then cause an issue when you are prosecuting this person and building a case down the road.
Right. And you know how I love body language. I love observing it and drawing conclusions based on absolutely no professional experience whatsoever, except for just how it makes me feel inside. But he and Cash, you can tell they are being so intentionally cagey about stuff in their answers. And it's like their brains are moving so fast to be like, I've got to give information, but I can't give the wrong information. I've got to be careful, because when you know that much stuff that cannot be disclosed to the American public, but you still have to answer questions, one word put in the wrong place can be a real problem. And so they, of course, know tons of information they can't tell us. That's just the truth. It's obvious.
So what we do know so far, or at least what has been released, is 22 years old. He was seen on 2 separate occasions. Early in the morning, video footage obtained by TMZ showed him early in the morning with a t-shirt on, shorts, and a backpack walking towards the university. I think it was around 8:30 in the morning. And then again around 11:30, close to noon, which is when, just moments before the assassination happened, where he is wearing the clothes that the law enforcement had identified with him, that we saw images of him with, the long sleeve shirt and the pants with the Converse and the hat. And he's limping along on his way towards the university. Now, a lot of people are speculating that he was limping because he had the firearm somehow strapped onto him and like maybe down the leg of his pants a little bit. And that's why he's like gimping along, because he basically has like a splint on his leg. That was seen. That's video evidence that we've seen beforehand. And then we have additional video evidence of him leaving. And the belief is that possibly they're working through the theory that he dropped the firearm from the roof. In addition to that, there has been a ton of digital forensic evidence that has been obtained, because he was in a relationship with what was initially identified as his roommate. They were in a romantic relationship. He was transitioning from male to female. And there has also been reports that both Bongino and, well, especially Bongino and I think Patel have alluded to additional investigations. So investigating outside of Robinson and looking at his circle of friends because he was on Discord chats, and the Washington Free Beacon actually obtained some screenshots of a lot of these discussions that were happening in the group chat. They're going to play on the screen here, but like, for example, one is talking, all of these chats are kind of insinuating that they had information of the assassination beforehand. Like, it would be funny if someone like Charlie Kirk got shot on September 10th, LMAO. It, in that same tweet, had mentioned that like December, I think it mentioned Donald J. Trump. I think it was like December 14th. If I'm not mistaken, they're insinuating, they're referencing the second assassination attempt on Trump. Charlie Kirk is coming to my college tomorrow. I really hope someone evaporates him literally. Let's just say something big will happen. So within these chats that are overlapping, some of them, or they're looking to see if they overlap with Robinson's circle, they're speculating that people knew. Like, for example, this one says, "We effing did it," with a picture of Charlie Kirk. Now, the question is, did they know beforehand? And did they help set the situation, to help Robinson, with planning the assassination?
Right.
Or was he telling them and they thought it was a joke? Or, you know what I mean? Like, they're trying to find the intent of it. But there is
Right.
concerns that possibly there were a group of people that
Yes.
knew ahead of
I
time and said
definitely,
nothing.
I feel very confident, and I don't know I've spoke with someone who knows much more than I do. Let's leave it at that. I feel confident that there's other people involved. Does that mean he was planning it? Well, okay. From a complete outsider's point, like if you just handed me those Discord communications, well, yes, it sounds like all of them were planning it. Like this was something that they all were like, yeah, we'll work together
I
and
should
do
just to
it.
correct you real quick. I need to double check. I'm not sure that those were all Discord communications. Some of them were actually on social media because
Okay.
there was an Instagram page that was called Armed Queers of Utah or something along those
Mhm.
lines. And I think a lot of those images that I just shared
Yeah.
came from there in addition to other chats. And that
Okay, so
particular, but regardless, there were
I guess
conversations
my
that were
question
happening.
yeah, my question would be then we're in a really interesting like territory here because even if they can't they don't find conclusive evidence that he was working with another person or with more people, how do you handle all those people that had foreknowledge and did nothing? They didn't tell anybody. That's complicit. So how is that handled? And how would that not be some kind of conspiracy to hurt someone else, to commit an act of violence? If you knew, you had to have been involved if you knew about it and you're talking about it and you're actually saying the date and talking about the school and saying Charlie Kirk's going to be dead. It's not a threat, it's a promise. Well, that's you being involved, is it not? Or
I mean,
that's a
I'm
whole
not.
legal question, obviously.
Yeah, that's a legal question, and my legal background doesn't go that deep, because there's questions of aiding and abetting, but then
Mhm.
there's, before the fact and after the fact, but then there's certain parameters that would have to be set, like,
Right.
is this just them thinking he's joking? Are they taking him serious? I think there can be an argument because obviously you are part of a group whose entire, I wish I should have pulled this, but there was like a mission statement within the forum of that group. And the
Mhm.
mission statement specifically was about revolution, about activism, about arming up and taking like kinetic action in the defense
Yeah.
of queers in Utah.
But those communications didn't seem like, "Oh, we're gonna joke about it, but no one's really serious." Those
Yeah, I don't think
communications
so.
told me yeah, I know, those communications told me, "Y'all have sat around over, like,
Chatting about
drinks
it.
and decided the day." Like, you weren't just saying, "Oh, I hope it happens." You were like, "Here's where it's gonna happen and on what day," and that's a promise. That requires foreknowledge and also the societal implications for that. We've had a really hard time reeling while watching so many people in our society be totally fine with that, that's hard enough to kind of digest. And
It's been really hard. I'm gonna be
right. And
honest.
to now know that there's also not just groups of people that are fine with it and celebrating it, but there's also groups like online dark spaces that are like planning things like this. It's just another layer of societal decay. It's really
Yeah.
sad to think about.
Well, and it's like kind of the
Frightening,
horseshoe
actually.
theory, because like right now there's a big debate of like he was a leftist or he was like super ultra far right, which is kind of where
Uh-huh.
the discussion online is happening. I will
Yeah.
say, like, official primary sources such as the governor of Utah, FBI director, all of the news publications, the family itself has said that
Yeah.
he has identified with leftist ideologies and become
Yeah.
more politically active. Also, I just want to point out that he is in a relationship with a man that's transitioning, so that's not
And there
exactly
also has been
ultra
people,
far right.
yeah, have been talking about like his involvement with I just can't even believe we're talking about this. With like the furry demographic.
Yeah.
Am I gathering
That is his
that?
partner specifically. So,
Okay.
which is the roommate that is, or partner, roommate, whatever, that is currently cooperating with law
With
enforcement. Yeah. And they have also been they're saying he is cooperating. He's being very cooperative. We want him to cooperate.
but Tyler
What I,
Robinson isn't being cooperative is what I'm
no, he is
gathering
not cooperating at all. In fact, I believe he is being arraigned today. Like he's being
today.
officially charged today, Tuesday. My question is, you can be very cooperative. And they're also saying that he was surprised that this happened and he had no idea it happened. The investigation will determine that. We can't
Yeah.
take this man's word for it. In addition, there has also been a lot of questions about the suspect people that the New York Post reported that a neighbor mentioned were appearing at the apartment the weeks before. It could be two things. Could it be some of these people that were in these chats? Possibly. That is what they're investigating. Could
Mhm.
it be just, I don't know, normal circle of friends? And considering that the circle that they ran in, if you are a normal, average person that lives in rural Utah and are conservative, they're going to look a little weird.
Hmm.
And if they're students, if they were students that happen to be from a nearby university, it is not completely out of the realm of them having out of plate license plates. It's possible that they came from another state, they brought their car with
Yep.
them, they're a student, that is why they have an out of state license plate.
Mhm.
That is probably the most logical explanation I can give you. Doesn't mean that also it's not a possibility that maybe the individuals that were in this chat group or in this, this, what was it again? Armed Queers for Utah group were friends of theirs. Maybe they were coordinating and maybe they were students that were from out of state and that's why their plates. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like either
Yeah.
one of these are a possibility. And we are not going to know because like I said earlier, that is information that it would be irresponsible for law enforcement to share with us if they don't have anything definitive
Mhm.
because it could affect the case as they're building
Yeah.
and prosecuting the case later.
Yep.
That's think most of the questions that were revolved around the assassination. It's like because a lot of these questions were coming up because the theories were being shared by people and by creators that were seen to be supportive of Charlie Kirk and the administration. And so it really seems like if they're asking these questions, it's kind of like a red flag to be like something you're really suspicious of versus like somebody on the left, if they're just kind of like throwing ideas out there, it's a little bit more easy to
Yeah.
dismiss because they'll have an ulterior motive. And there's been plenty of ideas that have been coming out from the left. They're really pushing into like maybe this guy was like ultra far right. And I think right now there is almost like a unwillingness from people who lean to the left or Democrats to acknowledge that there is a rise of violence on the left. And to me, what I'm seeing so far, especially in this instance, is very similar to what you would see from the far right corners, especially back in the early 2000s and late 90s, where they were like on obscure online forums coordinating together and getting each other worked up and then organizing. To me, these two things are very similar because when you get into that really toxic mindset, that stuff starts to horseshoe and they start to mirror each other. Their motives are different, but much of the way they do things are very similar.
Yeah.
And I just think people on the left are having a hard time coming to terms with, the voices coming from the inside, especially because they've been placating it for so long. All right. So moving on to the next question. Literally, I would say that most of our questions focused on two things. One focused on the narrative that we just covered, and then the other one, it was very Israel focused. So the question of what are our thoughts on the Israel-related conspiracy theories surrounding Charlie Kirk's death, including claims by Candace Owens that he has changed his position on Israel. And I'm glad that we got through the first portion of this because pre-game to this episode, we were having some offline conversations that I feel like I got a lot of my stuff off my chest, which I think was good. Before we got into this episode, do you want to open it up since I've been talking for a hot minute?
I do not. I put out on Instagram that I hoped that people will listen to this and find it encouraging. And also please pray for us as we navigate this discussion because we do not want to engage in gossip. That's not what we're about. But no, not even but. We don't want to engage in gossip. This
isn't gossip.
This is about someone who has 6 million, 7 million followers on one platform alone, let alone all the platforms put together, an extreme amount of influence. And when you have that much influence, when you have any amount of influence, what you say matters, words matter, and what you don't say matters. And there's a lot of consequence to the things that she says because not only the things she says, they're heavy and carry a lot of weight, but also she has an enormous audience of not just it's normies who are imbibing what she is putting out there. And what we feel is that as time has gone on, especially in the last year or so, it's become more sensational, I hate the word toxic, but toxic, caustic, angry, vitriolic. There's a lot that can be said about that. And if you or someone you know is following her, you're taking that in constantly. And we just feel like there's some things that people should think about, especially this was a very good example for us that we could provide and say, let's think of these things through. It's important.
Yeah.
So I guess I did start us out. There we go.
Yes, you did. Well, it was funny. I was about to point that out. I was like, I thought you weren't going to start us out.
Yep, I know.
Well, and she's, we've kind of brought this up too, because in regards to, I didn't want to get into the, house and habit, Candace Owens thing is because that was gossip. This is not. And to give you my opinion, and just so you know, my opinion isn't coming out of just what everybody else is upset about. I watched her episode last night. Okay. I put myself through that. And I have actually watched, yes, I did. And I've watched other episodes of hers, especially when she was doing the whole, this woman is a man, not Bridget Jones. What is her name?
Brigitte Macron
or whatever. And what I see is that the reason I ended up watching her episode last night was because I was on the dark realms of TikTok and TikTokers who were very anti-Israel, anti-Charlie Kirk, which I thought was really interesting, were very interested to watch her episode last night because she was going to be dropping receipts and dropping bombs. Okay. And I watched that episode and what I saw was the most disgusting display that I have ever seen of someone making money off of the death of their alleged best friend. And I'm going to tell you exactly why. Okay. She opens up, first of all, her thumbnail is something about something no hath, no fury or some crap like that, right?
Hell hath no fury.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
I'm trying to keep my thoughts.
Keep it together, Meseidy. You're doing
Keep
good.
it
You're
together.
doing good.
Okay. With the picture of Bibi Netanyahu, which that alone is clickbait, okay? Because clearly everybody knows that she has been friends for a long time, which I'm going to also poke a hole in that. But she has been friends for a long time with Charlie Kirk. Everybody knows that. She went on a rampage after he died, which of course she can be upset about it and she can have an
Yeah.
emotional response to it. That is completely valid. But then she quickly moved into allegations and thoughts and asking questions and innuendos. And she's doing that with her thumbnail. Also, by the way, let me also point out that in this bomb dropping episode, she had all of her donations on and she was giving ads and she was making money off of this.
She had
That
8
was-
mid-roll ads, and she also was receiving YouTube donations. And at first I
Yeah.
thought, oh, maybe she's going to give all of that to the Kirks, and maybe she will. But she also mentioned during it, like, oh, well, the legal fees are really expensive for what I'm doing. Basically, I'm doing this for you, and putting my own family at risk, which is a whole other conversation. But yeah.
Well, and her matter, and I'm saying this broadly across several of her videos, her matter of communication is insinuating that she has evidence, but providing very little, if no evidence at all. It's very much insinuation. And
Yes.
her way of communication is to make you feel, or make the viewer feel, I should say, that they are also on the inside. Also uses language, emotive language, to make you feel that she is out there sacrificing herself for you. She's sitting in a like, I don't buy it, okay?
Well,
I don't
but
like
also
being
in a very real way. I do think in a way she is sacrificing something. She's sacrificing the safety of her kids and her family. I mean, when you're that high profile and you're willing to sit in your home and make really big, like flirt with really, really big accusations against other countries and their leaders and your own country and the leaders here, you are inviting that danger.
Well, and if she was making
And
those, I don't necessarily agree with, like, I don't have a problem with someone necessarily doing that with the consent and understanding of their family for honorable purposes. You understand what I'm saying?
I totally agree with that. Absolutely. Like,
But
if you're
that is not what
a whistleblower on
she's doing.
something- Yes, there's the difference between, and that's why I didn't even feel like I had to mention it, because it's so very clear right now. Unless you sit there and you show me everything and you tell me, and here's all the evidence, like actual evidence, not just, oh, I'm gonna do it one day and kind of like dangle it in front of
I have the
her.
chats.
I'm gonna show the receipts and I'm gonna show all the you know what, then do it now if it matters that much to you. And you're saying that Charlie Kirk matters so much to you. So much so that you are doing this not even a week after he was shot in the neck, not even giving his family time to grieve, before you are now accusing a whole bunch of people of being involved, and also kind of putting out veiled threats that if certain people are allowed access to Turning Point, that you're going to go on a rampage. And that, to me, I was thinking about this. You know how people say, they kind of wear it as a badge of honor, I don't care what anybody thinks about me. A lot of people say that. I don't care. I don't care. I have tough skin. I don't care what anybody thinks about me. And they kind of wear it as something that you should be proud of. And within the last year, I believe her when she says that. I really don't, in a not a great way, think that she cares what anybody thinks about her, including really the people that she's saying she cares about right now. If my dear friend, which she says that she was dear friends with Charlie Kirk, and I don't know, I'm sure that they were at some point, and my friend was assassinated, and I know that his family is reeling and walking through the darkest valleys that they will ever walk through. My last thought is going to be, you know what? I'm going to do this right now. I'm going to talk, I'm going to reveal all. I'm going to say everything. Because even if what she's saying and kind of like hinting at is true,
she can sit on it
and
for a minute.
What was that?
If it's true, she still could sit on it for a minute, and she
exactly,
didn't.
because what you're really implicating is one of the biggest historical political assassinations and scandals of all time. So if you're actually serious about that, and you have that information, you'll have it in a week and a half, and you'll have it in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And you can sit for a few minutes and be quiet and honor your friend by allowing his family to grieve. Instead, I guarantee that his family has heard about all of this, and that is not what they need right now. And I
Well,
think she feels like, I don't care what anybody thinks, and she's making that very clear, including
absolutely.
what they feel right now, what Erica and his parents and his siblings and his children and his whole staff, who now are
Well,
being forced in their pain to come out and make comments about what she's doing and say, you're wrong.
yeah. Well, exactly, because that's what ended up happening. So to give everybody a little bit of background, she opens this episode with this dropping this bomb accusation, and it goes like, I think it's almost like 20 or 30 minutes into the beginning of her episode. I might be off on the time there, but essentially what she is insinuating, first of all, she's very upset that Bibi Netanyahu went on Fox News and shares a letter from back, I think in May or something like that, that speaks positively of Israel. And she is suggesting that that is not all of the context of the letter, that he needs to show the whole letter. And she's upset because he is insinuating that Charlie Kirk was still supportive of Israel. And then she goes on to insinuate and provide receipts, and I'm air quoting the receipts for those of you who are not watching, that he was starting to change his mind on Israel and move against Israel. And then, in addition to that, she brings up a dinner event that happened with Bill Ackman, who is a billionaire. And she's also like, well, where did he get his money from? Wink, wink, because he is also Jewish. So why is he getting his money, and why is he a billionaire, and where did he get it from? And she's insinuating that at that dinner, at that event, that there was some kind of intervention happened with Charlie Kirk about his position, his growing position, this is how she frames it, against Israel and starting to become anti-Israel. And that he was being like challenged on that. And that Bill Ackman then stepped in, essentially blackmailing him and threatening him and offering to pay him off to stop talking poor about Israel. Then she goes on and plays a clip where Charlie Kirk starts to criticize, or is criticizing, the policies in regards to Gaza, or that Israel and the actions that Israel is doing against Gaza. Now, let me be completely clear here, okay? Charlie Kirk, like many conservatives and many people, have been having the discussion that we have gotten so far into this war, and it has gone that even conservatives are starting to think, what is the off ramp?
Yeah,
When
what's the
is
end
this
goal?
going to end? Which is a completely valid and correct question. That does not
Yes.
necessarily mean that you are against Israel.
Right.
Okay.
Or you, right. And also, he is the leader of an enormous college activism group where he's listening to college students every single day. And lots of them, even ardent conservatives, are going, well, you know, that issue is not actually my top issue. My issue right now is affordability. My issue of housing. My issue is I want to talk about jobs. What's going to be left for me when I graduate from college? And so they're steering away kind of from that. And he's listening to them. He has the ear of the youth, and he's saying, we need to be
Look,
talking
just
less
so you know,
about, yeah, this is a conversation with the youths, you know? And so she's like villainizing, she's trying to reshape what he's actually doing, when I believe what he was actually doing is just listening to the college students and what they're saying is an important issue to them right now. They're exhausted by the Israel-Gaza war. It's been going on for 3 years. They're pivoting their attention, if it ever was actually on that. And that's not wrong for him to say that. He's working with a demographic here. And he's always been a friend to Israel. It's not like he all of a sudden said, never mind,
yeah.
I hate them now. He's just going, we're asking questions, we're talking about
like,
where
Charlie
do we go from here?
was legitimately asking questions and voicing
Yeah.
the concerns that I think are completely valid, that
Right.
I have myself. Like, this cannot
Yeah.
go on forever. Okay. And I
Yeah.
especially do not want to be spending money for this to go on forever. That is
And that does not
completely
make you
valid.
anti-Israel or a
Not the
Democrat or
way
anything.
Candace Owens is. Candace Owens was setting up, if you listen to her cadence of the way she's talking and the insinuations that she's making, her thumbnail, and how long she goes through this entire story before she
Yes.
goes, now, I'm not going to say, or there's no evidence that Israel assassinated Charlie Kirk, or there's no evidence that they assassinated Charlie Kirk. I should have grabbed the full quote.
Ugh,
But
I don't even want
you're
to bear
gonna
that airtime.
I I cannot. Like the winking, the I'm just asking questions, and let me provide you my argument and my personal opinion on this, okay? I haven't seen Charlie Kirk in public with Candace Owens in ages, okay? That's not to say that they weren't communicating on text messages, because I don't see their text messages. But a lot of us have friends that you become distant with, that you don't allow into your life every day, that you still communicate casually online with.
Mhm.
Okay. So I am not going to completely trust 110% that she has some inside, know-how on exactly how Charlie Kirk was thinking, or
Right.
what his opinions were, or whether he was changing his faith. Do I think that suddenly Charlie Kirk was becoming very anti-Israel, or having an issue with the Jewish people or the Jewish religion in general? Let me point out that Charlie Kirk had started practicing the Sabbath. Okay. He is a Christian man that started to see a value in the Sabbath, where all day Saturday, or I think it's from Friday to Saturday, like
Friday
evening,
night to Saturday
Friday
night.
evening to Saturday evening, where they practice the Sabbath. They don't use any electronics. And he was even going to write a book about it. Okay.
Mhm.
He has been known generally as a supporter of Israel, of the Jewish people.
Mhm.
His wife, there's also a lot of questions for some reason about Catholicism. I don't know if you guys know this, his wife is a Catholic, he is a Protestant. Very weird. I mean, not,
See, I heard she
sorry,
wasn't a Catholic.
I've heard both. I can't confirm
Okay.
because I
And
don't
I
know,
heard the
but this,
crucifix. Everybody was saying, "Oh, it's a crucifix that she was holding up when she was like driving, and when she was."
it was
That
a
was his
rosary.
cross. I heard it was not. I heard it was his necklace, his cross necklace that he wore
See?
everywhere.
So that's
See,
the same deal. Like,
that's
no,
the whole point. Like, we're not coming
That's-
on here telling you about it, people, because we don't know. And neither, if I had to venture a guess, does she.
neither does
And
Candace
that's why
Owens.
this is toxic. And this is why we're having to spend our one wild and precious life talking about it, because people are captured by her and people like her. They have these humongous platforms. They have lots of resources. They have lawyers that can defend them when they say really wild things, and they make captivating arguments, and they're right, like maybe 60, 70% of the
Look,
time.
I was actually saying this to my husband yesterday or this morning, I can't remember, because I've gone through multiple rants over the last 48 hours or so, just 72 hours, whatever. And I think one of the things that, going back to COVID, so I'm going way back, okay? Like, for example, the article about Bill Ackman and this supposed intervention or whatever that happened, that article originates from, or that speculation originates from an article from a publication called The Gray Zone. The Gray Zone is kind of libertarian, leaning right, a little conspiratorial. And it's also one of these publications like Laura Loomer, like Candace Owens, like others, that they'll get things right and then also get things really wrong. And so it makes it really difficult to discern whether or not they are a source that can be trusted. Now, oddly enough, I think Laura Loomer gets it right way more than Candace Owens does. But, that's my personal opinion. And I think that we became so suspicious of our government, especially post COVID and the mandates and the forcing of the vaccination, that when other accounts who didn't really have a whole lot of prominence in, they were kind of like on the outskirts, called it out and got it right, in addition to a few other things, especially when it comes to the
Vaccines
spying on
or
and the Russia gate and everything like that. And they got those things right. They ended up getting some form of street cred that made it seem like this is a source we can trust. Don't even trust us, okay?
well, no, that's
my
just
point
it.
being is that you have to be aware that there are accounts out there that they got some of that street cred, but honestly, they're all trying to make money here at some way. And right now, we have the government, we have the presidency. We no longer have I say we, but I'm just saying these creators on the right, there's no longer the government is against us, because it's an easier argument when you don't have the government. So I almost feel like people are making other things up. And then in addition to that, they have gotten this street cred because they were right before. And so people are just believing them now.
Yeah. And I feel
Did that
again, it makes sense. And I think, you know, in the aftermath of his assassination, it was very clear to go, my gosh, there's these people who are defending this. That's horrible. That's horrible. And it's a lot harder sometimes to see how the devil works on our side. And
Yes.
I think one way he works on our side is by us outsourcing truth to other people that are not the Lord and relying on that to make us feel informed and comfortable. And this is coming from someone who literally puts out information and asks people to trust her. You know, I'm coming by that honestly and just saying, when we start to listen to voices in culture, but we're not first asking the Lord for discernment, it's a way that I think the devil can have power over us, because we become very loyal to certain voices. We don't want to question them. We don't want to, you know, push back on their narratives because they become sacred to us in the absence of us slowing down and going to the Lord for wisdom and discernment and answers. And again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. In the absence of answers, we get very uncomfortable. We always just want answers. So if someone's providing them and is as sure as the day is bright and the night is dark, like Candace is, where she's just like, I know it, it's the truth. You don't know. I know the information. You don't have it. When someone's like that, it makes it very easy to trust them.
Especially if it's something that confirms you already suspect
Right.
and think. It makes you feel
Right.
even
And
more
so
comfortable.
that's why we're bringing this up. This is not a let's bash someone else. It's a disturbing trend when I'm seeing lots of Christians I know just outsource truth to other people to give it back to them. And that's how we get kind of in these confirmation bias loops with people who have ulterior motives. And that became really clear to me when I was watching that, just thinking how sad. In This is what you're going to be remembered for. This is what you did in the wake of your supposed really, really good friend's assassination. And with all the anger and vitriol that she could muster, that this is what she's choosing to double down on. And it's really, I think it should be a clarion call to a lot of people who follow her and other people we've seen put out very distressing things this past week. And, you know, I hate to say people put things out in order to grow their account and monetize, but that seems
I
to be the
mean,
game.
it just kind of seems to be what's going on. So,
Yes.
you know, at the end, my answer to this is that, look, if I see anything that I legitimately am like, that's kind of weird. Like the whole gun
Mhm.
thing I thought was kind of weird. I'll be honest. Like, where is it? I didn't see it in the video. And that is a valid and logical, they're investigating it. Maybe he dropped it off the roof and it was off the camera. Like my point being is like, I just encourage people, like it's kind of fun to feel like you have something on the inside that nobody else is
Mhm.
talking about and that you don't
Right.
know. And I'm absolutely not saying blindly trust your government and official narratives. Okay.
Right.
But also, like Rachel said before, it's like not everything is a conspiracy. We can't live in this hamster wheel of like, look, we have enough real people. Clearly, we've all learned that
Mhm.
we have enough real people out there that are out
Jeez.
to get us.
That's the
Okay.
truth.
We don't need to make up any more. I don't know if this is maybe a little off cuff, but what benefit is there to take that in and internalize it when we already have so much stuff out there that is already tangible, as we can see it for ourselves, as opposed to all of this speculation that really was just going to kind of drive you nuts.
Ugh.
There's one truth. The truth is it's in the Bible. It's our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Okay. And I would just lean into that. Like there was nothing to me that was more reassuring than when I went to church this weekend and
Mhm.
and just to kind of find like a stabilizing moment,
Yeah.
because everything else is just so crazy out there. And I just want people to, I'm getting a little rambly here, but give the obvious or what is clear like a minute. And
Mhm.
then when something is specifically off, then absolutely don't just be like, because somebody argues against it, it doesn't mean it's true. You know what I mean?
And
I don't
I
know if I'm
think one
making
thing,
any
like,
sense
oh no,
here.
you're making total sense. I think another thing that we should become a little bit more comfortable with, myself included, which is really hard for me because I want to provide answers for people and evidence and, you know, data, is that we're just not going to know everything.
Mhm.
And that's okay. Like, there might just be some answers we're not
We
going to get.
shouldn't know
Yeah,
everything. Like,
I don't want to know everything.
we're not made to know everything. I know a lot of us
No.
feel like to know everything because of the way social media works and the way information works and how politics and news has become a form of entertainment. So we all feel like we should know and we should have that insider information. And we're really just not meant to know everything or to
Yeah.
be exposed to things or to know people's deepest, darkest internal thoughts, which honestly, people just, I would prefer not to know. Charlie's assassination was traumatizing. Being assaulted with that video against my will on social media that just like got pushed to me via the algorithm was traumatizing. I'm going to tell you that straight up. And it is something I'm thinking about it right now and I get emotional. Okay. But what has become even more disturbing and traumatizing for me personally has been the aftermath and the response. And
Yep.
yes, the response from the left has been absolutely grotesque and scary, especially when it's not just like some weird blue-haired kid out in the middle of, I don't know, in some flat in New York with nothing to do or whatever. Like, it's not just that. It's like regular people that are walking amongst us. And that was really disturbing.
Yes.
And that has been really traumatizing. But I've also found this reaction from some on the right I almost found it disturbing to take away or undermine almost the really disgusting and disturbing thing that this kid did.
Yeah.
Because by not like, and I think it comes from like where people are just like unable to process that someone could be like just so horrible. So it's like what you said before, it has to be the government, or it has to be some outside entity or something like that. This is coming from with inside. Okay. And if people are coping with like, well, I think it was this, conspiracy, they're like, let me tell you, I don't think this is it. This is not the time to be coping with like, it's some, whatever out here. This kid was a normal kid that grew up in a 2-parent home, upper middle class. The father ran a business. The mother was a social worker. He was in the rural areas of Utah. He went to college. He was gifted. He had all the signs of promise. And at 22 years old, he assassinated an innocent man because he didn't like what he had to say. And that is flippin' scary.
It is. And it's flipping scary when you zoom out, like erase from your memory right now any opinion we might have given you today to think about. Just zoom out and think it was 6 days ago. This happened 6 days ago, right? And there are influencers on both sides of the aisle that are whipping people up in a frenzy about kind of outlandish conspiracies that they so far don't have any hard evidence about, or it's being rebutted by people who were actually like involved. They are, just think about that, 6 days, and they're making it all about them and they're monetizing it. And that to me is a dangerous subculture in our society as well, because that's dehumanizing people in order for clicks in a different way. Certainly it's not as dangerous, but it's still of concern. And I think it was just sad for Meseidy and I to watch that, and then to watch so many people then direct their attention away from the tragedy of what happened and how we need to discuss this. We need to come together. We need to just take a hard look at where we're at. And they're diverting their attention from that to conspiracy. Oh, you think Israel maybe did this? Oh my gosh, who's on the inside? Maybe it's, this guy standing behind him was sending a signal to the shooter. And maybe it's the kid asking the questions. And how sad is that? Like, he hasn't even been buried yet. And influencers, and I know we're taking to task our own side right now, but it's not exclusive. It's on the other side too. It's just disheartening.
It
And
really
there are
is.
people who say that they are friends and they love him and they care about him. You know what? Then let the family grieve.
I actually wanted to bring up in response to, just because we've brought it up, and for to kind of close this full circle about the allegations of the intervention that Candace Owens brought up on her show. Bill Ackman did respond to it. And his post is like really long. So I'm not going to share it here because I don't have time. Like, it's literally, this man writes like it's a freaking testament. But Andrew, I think you pronounce his name, Colvett.
Mhm.
I'm going to share it with you guys here. He responded. And so he is the producer of Charlie Kirk's show. Like, he's one of the ones that runs the show and what Charlie in Turning Point USA. And so I have it right here up on the screen. And he says, I've been asked about the Bill Ackman event more than a few times. Now, so I asked our staff who were traveling with Charlie to find out what's true and what's not. His team was with him 100% of the time when he wasn't in his hotel room. Here's what they told me. Bill never yelled at Charlie, never pressed him on Bibi, never gave him a list of Charlie's offenses against Israel. There was concern raised about having Tucker at SAS. We don't believe this came from Bill. And Charlie's reply was, quote, honestly, people telling me not to have Tucker makes me want to have Tucker. And I'm going to lock him in for AM Fest too. Charlie personally told me that he had a very cordial relationship with Bill and the event was productive. Those are the facts. And then he also follows up with, I spoke to all 3 team members, not counting security, who were with him because I wanted to make sure one person hadn't been missed during the alleged incident. So that is the official word from official channels of Turning Point USA.
And I
That
kind of
specifically,
love that. I love Charlie's response about Tucker too, quite honestly.
yeah,
Um,
because
and
I have my issues with Tucker too, but like,
well, and a lot of people do. And I saw so much chatter in the last 2 weeks where people are like, take him off the roster right now, Charlie. You're killing Turning Point USA by doing this. And the fact that he knows his audience so well that he would say, nope, you guys hate him so much. I want him there even more, because that is what productive dialogue does. If someone has horrible ideas, let them share them. Let the other people decide. And Charlie offered a wonderful atmosphere for that. Everywhere he went, where people could come and disagree and then walk away, and not that, I don't know how much that's going to happen right now
yeah, I don't
anymore
know.
because
And
of this.
honestly, with Candace and this whole thing, like, she did respond to Ackman with her, usual type of response. And what I think what annoys me here, and I'm going to start wrapping us up, is that she's doing this and Charlie has no way to defend himself.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like, he can't,
Yes.
he has to share, like, this is her post here. She makes 5 points against Bill Ackman. They're all very kind of confrontational, challenging the narrative. And if you were to read her entire post, she's telling him to check his ego. I know it's frightening. Victimhood is a kind of Israel brand thing, but I was clear that Charlie felt blackmailed by the offer to fund Turning Point USA. Then she also goes and points out, I didn't say you blackmailed him, but if you watch the video, she does make the insinuation that it was Ackman.
Yeah. Yep. And she's doubling down on it. Right before we started recording, she put out a tweet that says, more is going to come out, guys. The truth is inevitable. They are lying, but rest assured, these people were deranged enough to put their anger and demands in writing. So you know what? If it comes out that she was right all along, that's fine.
That's fine.
But you know what? The only female I want to hear telling me about what Charlie Kirk was feeling, thinking of doing, is his wife.
Correct.
And she right now is not able to say anything because she doesn't want to waste her time with stuff like this. She's grieving. She's a grieving widow.
What kind of friend is this? Seriously.
I don't. It makes me sad, but it makes me sad. People are rotten in relationships all the time. What makes me sad about this is she has millions and millions and millions of Americans who listen to her. Lots of them are females, lots of Christian females. And she speaks and says very hateful, caustic, vitriolic things, not just about other countries, not just about your own countrymen and people in our government, not just about Jews. I mean, that happens in literally every single one of her episodes, but about Protestants. She talks poorly about your faith. And
Mhm.
I think we need to be able to say, yeah, I really liked her documentary about vaccines, but this is degrading my soul. And you might not even know it. And I say that as someone who had to take a really good look at some of the content that I have been taking in the last 4 and 5 years and saying, Lord, this is not beneficial for me. And I think that's why Meseidy and I wanted to bring it up. It's just really sad.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead. We had a whole bunch of other questions. I think we
Sorry,
answered
guys.
some of them. Yeah, I know. But in the peripheral, because there was questions about friends of Charlie, his faith. So I feel like we kind of got those a little bit on the edges of our two major questions. So
Yeah.
I'm tired.
Yeah,
It's been
me too.
it's been a
Week.
long
I feel like we've lived a
week.
decade in the last 6
And
days.
it
for
hasn't
sure.
even been a full week, but I'm going to
It
go
hasn't.
ahead and wrap us up for today's episode of Rivera and Reeves. If this is your first time here, I promise it's usually a lot more fun. So please consider please consider following us so you don't miss another episode. We'll be here every Tuesday and Thursday with a new episode. If you're a paying supporter, you get our videos early, you get our audio early, and you also get a bonus episode once a month, which I think we're going to be recording like 2 weekends from now. So, and you'll get the entire backlog. So, they're pretty evergreen. So if you just want to do a binge, go and binge. You know what I mean? Yep. So that's it. That's all we have for today's episode of Rivera and Reeves. That's all I have. I'm too tired. The media is most definitely trash. They will never fail us. Honestly. Okay, you guys. Bye.
Bye.